Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Jackie Cation here. You're listening to The Dork Forest. You know the websites, dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com if you like a determiner. JackieCation.com has everything. Both of my podcasts, all of the stand-up stuff, the new album, links to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. But so, I think, does dorkforest.com, where you can look at old videos of different shows. Anyway, if you want to support the show, tell people about the show, review it on iTunes, thumbs it up on Pandora or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate that. You can donate. You can donate monthly. PayPal lets you do that. You can also do my Venmo if you like. It's at Jackie Cation, absolutely everywhere. And my email address is jackie@jackiecation.com, and that's what the PayPal is. The PayPal link is on jackie.cation.com and dorkforest.com. And go to any of them. Thanks for listening. There's merch, there's stand-up, there's tour guide. You know, you can find out where I'm touring. This is getting long, so let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room. It might be loud, you guys. We don't know. They're adding a thing to like a little shower thing, so my mother-in-law can move in with me. And so you might hear a little in the background. But with me today, in this very special Dork Forest, a man that I have met one time in real life, and his name is Paasha Motamedi. Welcome to the program, Paasha Motamedi.
Hi, thanks, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I liked that you picked a bunch of things as a dorkdom. First of all, it's at Paasha Motamedi on Instagram. You can see his art there, and you can follow him on Instagram, and that will be in the notes. And I like that you picked, like, it was like the most basic things and then the most esoteric things. And all of them are huge. So know in your heart that we have an hour. And so we could put aside, unless you want to start with food and water. They feel big. They feel real big, food and water. And we could go to perfume. We could go to cigars. We could go to poetry, which are also enormous.
I will follow you anywhere. So whatever you want to start with.
I am interested in, I once read Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins. That is all I know about perfume. I use soap. Though I am Armenian and all of my people smell vaguely of fake Giorgio and the Cold War, I do not use perfume or own a tracksuit. We bury my people. That is our caricatures. So what kind of perfume? What do you know about perfume? Why do you like it? What's happening?
I do love the Armenian plug. I'm Persian, and that's definitely a big part of the stereotype in which I lean in a 100%? Painful amount, 100%. Actually, when I got COVID December 2020, I was at my mom's house. I had just quarantined for 17 days. And I was drinking coffee and I was like, I don't know about this coffee. And so I went downstairs and I got the most hardcore perfume that I own. I sprayed it on myself. I would never do this in real life because it would just linger for the whole day. I put my nose up to it. Mm-hmm. Nothing, not even like the alcohol smell.
Oh, that is full on COVID.
It was full on COVID. And that was my... Instantly, it wasn't like go taste ketchup. It was like, go spray perfume. And it was, that aside, perfume has been just a weirdly big part of my life. I think early on, there was this like rollerball that my first perfume was one that I stole from my brother. A lot of my first things were things that I stole from my brothers. They were 5 and 7 years older.
Oh, so, yeah. They were in the know.
Exactly. Why would you throw that experience, strength, and hope down the drain and, start
and not
over?
Just hand me that joint? What
exactly.
has happened? It's I have 4 older brothers and an older sister, and they were constantly sliding me things. In our case, it was books, and it was tasks. I was constantly being delegated as the youngest. My sister more than once signed me up to stuff envelopes for different political candidates. And she was like, "You're helping." And I was like, "What just happened? I'm 15. I can't even vote." And she's like, "Take 2 buses to downtown Milwaukee and help me stuff envelopes for John Anderson." And I was like, "Okay, all right, third party, 1980. Let's do this." Okay.
Third party. Wow.
I know. She's a bit of a political. My family is full of weird political nerds. So
That's hip. That's very hip.
And at the time, not at all.
Yeah.
But so you got that first. So you got it from your brothers. Do you remember what the first brand is?
It was I remember the first day that I took it and put it on my body, and I didn't know how much to put on, so I put on a lot. The brand was called All Sport. And it was just like, it was just generic. Like, if you knew about sports, this might be the perfume you wear. And
How old were you?
This would have been, I was probably in 3rd grade, so 8 or 9.
Oh, you were a child.
I was a child.
With a full beard, weirdly enough.
With a full beard. Exactly. Yeah, they didn't really know what to do with me. I made this. There was this girl. I won't name her. I'd love to, but
she doesn't need it. She doesn't.
She was a huge bully. She bullied everyone, including the teachers. The teacher scared her. And I put on too much, and she kept going like this during PE because I was sweating. And obviously when you sweat, you cast more of a fragrance. And she like complained very passive aggressively, like earliest known use of passive aggression outside of my family, in autobiographically, I should say. And she told Miss Z, there's a whole story there, but that it was upsetting her. And literally right after saying that, Miss Z got everyone together and was like, let's remember that when we get ready in the morning, we want to think about other people as well as ourselves and how comfortable we're going to make them feel too.
Oh my goodness.
I got fucking fragrance shamed the first time I ever put anything on my body meaningfully. And I'm also the youngest of 3. I'm a shit stirrer, which means like, I was sold. Like, I could totally.
Did you double down? You're like, I will bathe in this stuff now. Watch me do it.
Jackie, I am a trauma survivor, youngest of 3, recovering alcoholic. All I know how to do is double down.
Fair enough. It's you know what? It's keep coming back, man. It's that'll shave that down a little bit.
Absolutely, bit by bit, step by step. Absolutely. And so, I think the first fragrance that was purchased from me was Eternity by Calvin Klein.
Okay.
Of course, in the set. And honestly, to this day, I still think I wouldn't wear it, but I still kind of like it. Okay. There's some of these fragrances from, the 90s, early aughts, that are very typical, very typified by the time.
Okay, so rattle me off some names. What?
For men,
yeah,
Armani Acqua di Gio.
Acqua di Gio.
Yeah, Acqua di Gio, Giorgio Armani. I did an interview at Le Labo. I worked at Le Labo for exactly 2 days before I quit. It's deeply embarrassing for me.
What is Le Labo?
Le Labo is a small perfume house. Grass, New York, and now all over the world.
Okay.
But I mentioned, I think it's Bruno Jovanovic. He's a perfumer, and he created, to my memory, Bergamot 22, which is a Le Labo fragrance. And then I also had mentioned that I initially wore Armani. Armani Acqua di Gio came after Calvin Klein Eternity.
Okay.
And I mentioned that in the interview, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like let me connect those dots for you." And I was like, "That's really cool that there's this sort of like pedigree and family tree of sorts in the perfume world."
Yeah, it sounds like remember The Devil Wears Prada? There's that scene where Meryl Streep explains why she's wearing a green sweater or something.
Is
it kind of like
cerulean. It's exactly like that. And the sort of cycle, just to like zoom out a little bit, the cycle of what is popularized, when we talk about like big box stores, like, especially that time period, like JCPenney's, Macy's, Sears, places that like a lot of, if not most Americans could go to, feel comfortable, talk to somebody who knew, at least a little bit more, and buy and walk away with a fragrance. And, they just did so much volume on these perfumes that it sort of typified what was normal, because what was normal, I have a very specific potpourri from a house in Florence, a fragrance house-esque. It was founded by
Florence, Italy?
Florence, Italy. It was founded, to my knowledge, in 1612.
Okay.
And they've been making this potpourri forever. And they just came out with something called 1221, which is in reference to the fact that that's when the monks started to grow the things that would then enter this potpourri.
Okay. A potpourri, of course, is dried flowers and stuff that smells. And what are we like? If I were to get into potpourri, and this might be a cause for divorce or possibly murder from Andy Ashcraft, who couldn't be waspier if he tried. And he is the whitest of all whitey magoos. But he is like, he hates it when I sage. And I'm like, no, my hippie ancestry means that I have to clear some shit out. And he's like, so sad, too bad. It smells gross. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have to suck it up because I'm doing it anyway. But so what's in a, like, potpourris? There's probably a standard. Is there standardization? I mean, because it could be anything, right?
It's anything. I mean, why I particularly love this one is potpourri gets a really bad rap because of, I feel like we will have the same attitude towards candles because of, and it's, again, I'm not trying to create a value judgment because I want everyone to enjoy whatever fragrance they enjoy.
Right.
But I think that there is a normalization of like pumpkin spice latte candle, or, the sort of Yankee candle company.
Right. Yankee Doodle or Yankee Candle Company.
Yankee Snickerdoodle, whatever it is. But what I like about this fragrance and this fragrance house is, there's a timelessness to it. And the timelessness to me is not rooted in what trend is happening and or being pushed by a marketing team, by, salespeople who just have a surplus of something. And just a quick little plug, just folks out there, if they want to get involved, actually, and I can forward this to you. There's actually quite a problem right now with Southern California sage poachers, in specifically the trade of sage rubs. So keep an eye out where you get your sage. Be mindful, be thoughtful of that, because we need to preserve, this land as it is. And also,
are they harvesting it on essentially not? They're not growing sage and then harvesting it. They're just sort of guerrilla gathering sage.
Yeah, guerrilla gathering is officially our new well, let's do the flower bomb situation, which is a whole other thing. But
and here's the weird thing for me with potpourri and with all scents. There, like you say, pumpkin lattes and pumpkin spice and cinnamon, and there's a food-based kind of row that people are like, no, I want to smell like vanilla. No, I want to smell like cinnamon. I want to smell like bergamot, or, I think, but then there's another one that's more flower related.
Yeah.
Where there's roses and there's
different, there's spice, there's wood. These are helpful categorizations. my friend Jared, he's a very talented jazz trumpeter, and at the time I was primarily writing poetry, and so we had weird similarities in language and crossover. And he would always tell me that the way that I would describe things to him, especially fragrances, were possibly the absolutely fucking weirdest, most out there way of talking about it.
Yeah.
Sort of like in the movie, there's that documentary called Somm, where there's that one like uppity young white dude who's just like, smells like the inside of a tennis ball can once you open it. And I was like, okay,
right.
like, okay, sure. And I'm
yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a buzzkill. They're constantly talking about he lives in his mom's basement, and you're like, write another joke.
Yeah.
So so I get that, but some people can actually like taste wine or
absolutely.
Things and actually tell they're like, oh, I've traveled enough that this is actually a French wine, or this is and then it gets narrower and narrower until it can be mocked openly. But
it can be. No, for sure. I will, just for the sake of, I was involved before I got sober. I was involved in the wine world, and I was around wine people a lot, and a lot of somms, and it's an interesting world. But I'm pretty sure there was like a double-blind study where they put some, not like master somms, but they put some somms and or just regular drinkers to the test, and they couldn't tell the difference between red and white wine blindfolded.
And somms, is that short for sommelier?
Yeah.
Did you just go Australian on me and I want to call them Samos. The Samos. You ever?
Yeah. Now for Australians, it would be a sommelier,
and you're going to want to get yourself a cabo. There was a guy I knew who did not know that the whole word was Cabernet Sauvignon. He was a young Australian man, and he was like, I thought it was just called Cabo, which, by the way, I don't do accents. I don't know if you could tell. That was my dude accent. So that's all I do.
I don't do accents either. My friend Sasha will be the person to tell you that.
You just did too. But so,
I just did. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
But okay. But the interesting thing about this is, so in your home, like I can see in your home, because we're on Zoom, you guys, and here I am talking to Paasha, Motamedi. That's right. I'm going to get the accent on the right syllable, and Motamedi. And it's, what does it smell like now? Like, what do you like? Do you have something going?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like to sort of create little scent compartments in my house. So the kitchen for me is off limits because you shouldn't smell anything when you're eating other than the food.
Right.
In the living room space, I have two diffusers. One is they're both the same. It's from Soho Home, and it's leather and oud. And so it's warm. It's got a tiny bit of spice. It's sexy. It's like green. It's like a forest green velvet and a burgundy velvet just rubbing up against each other, like very uncomfortably sexually, Like,
right.
Like,
is it like being in a leather chair? Is it?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it wasn't my intention, but the diffuser that they came in was so beautiful, and it's refillable, that when my fragrance comes back in stock, which is the Sicilian Thyme, I can't wait to re-up. But for now, it does the job of creating a welcoming, warm, calm environment.
And so if there's a diffuser, are you pouring oils into this thing?
So it's basically there's a vessel, a marble vessel, and then a glass basically like little cup in it. And then you can fill it with the diffuser juice, basically, which is, to my knowledge, a emulsion of oil and a little bit of alcohol, so that it's
and then the scent, then the thing that
the scent, and so the perfume itself, and then you put reeds in it.
Oh, and, for display.
The reed diffuser is actually what sucks it out and then dries out, but while it's drying out, it releases and casts a scent.
Oh, wait a minute. Does it look like that?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. It has little sticks coming out of it.
And are you buying the sticks?
It comes with the sticks. It comes with the cute little marble case, and it comes with the fragrance itself.
Okay, so you buy a small a kit or like a flower vase with the thing, and then you're like, I'm gonna set this up. We're gonna. Can you just buy sticks for reloading? This is a very practical question, I know, but it's a.
Actually, you just that's not just a practical. It's a great question, because when I get the new scent, I'm not going to want to use the old reed diffuser. So that's actually a great question. You could absolutely, you would want to change them. And to anyone out there that's listening and has never been impressed by the smell of a reed diffuser, especially for the first couple of days, you're supposed to dip, flip, put it back in. So the dipped part is out first, which will actually help draw some of the oil out into the reed.
Okay.
So that's what's in the living room right now. That's Soho Home, leather and oud. And then in the bathroom, there's the Santa. Let me just take a sip.
Sure.
Before I pronounce this. Farmacia Ufficiale Santa Maria Novella. It's the most incredible, beautiful place in Florence. And it's like a church for fragrance.
Okay.
And that's the potpourri I was mentioning earlier. So it's camphor, it's herbal, it's deeply woody. It just smells like something like a monk would rub in his beard before coming back into town if he was trying to fuck someone.
Wait, he's a monk.
He's also
a human person. Yes, he's also a human person. He might want to get some action. We don't know. He's been alone for years. Okay.
So that's in a little clay pot. And what's important is that there's two schools of thought. There's the porous one, which doesn't have any glaze. That'll cast a more pronounced scent, but you have to replace it more.
Okay.
Then there's, if you glaze it, which, would be lined on the inside, it's a bit more slower to release, but in a bathroom setting, that's actually perfect.
Okay.
You don't want somebody to walk in your bathroom and be like, fuck, like that was intense.
Right. Right.
So, and then in the bedroom, I've got Santa Maria Novella again with their diffuser called Europa. So 3 fragrances, 3 rooms. And the goal ultimately is to primarily, scent should be personal. So for me, I want to, when I get up in the morning, I want something a bit refreshing, something slightly floral, maybe a little bit of citrus. And I want it to invigorate my day. I want to go make my coffee. I want to go to the bathroom, do my shower, get my routine going, to get out of the house. When I come home, I want to just chill out. I want to lay on my couch. I want to relax. And this sort of helps signify that. I mean, the thing that I was going to say earlier is it was the thing that it was fragrance before fashion for me that I discovered you could I was too young to be shitty and manipulative, but I was maybe just being manipulative, where I wanted people to perceive me a certain way. And I knew that if I wore a fragrance, they'd be like, oh, like he smells good. They wouldn't necessarily be able to draw 2 dots together like, oh, he smells good, therefore this. But it's just like, oh, he smells good. This is pleasant. I like to be around this person.
It sounds like you're like 10 years old and you're thinking to yourself, how do I how do I sort of control my own surroundings a little bit, you know, and how I'm perceived and how I, you know, and how, you know, I am accepted into the world. It was just like, oh, this is not a child. This is a man. And you're like, but you're 10. So you do it. It's interesting because there were like some children will try to have a lot of information, right? They'll be like, they'll talk and they'll talk. That might have been me. There are other children who, you know, essentially just fade into the background and just like try to Karl Rove themselves, you know, the power behind the throne. And then there's temper tantrums and there's other ways that you do it. But so this is interesting that it was like an instinctive, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to at least control how I am perceived. And it's from scent rather than clothing.
Yeah, it did eventually turn into clothing. A big part of my story is that like I was diagnosed with, I got the hot diagnosis in the mid 90s of ADD, ADHD. And so they put me on those meds. Yeah.
Adderall and
it was a lot. I tried every medication that ever came out between basically 1995 and 2008.
It was kind of and I'm 100 years old, but I have an opinion that it was overprescribed and overdiagnosed, where children were not allowed to be children and parents didn't want to actually parent. And they're like, oh, I mean, I think The Simpsons and South Park have pretty much covered it. I don't need to actually go into it, but
no, I don't think that there's a better example of the transition that we've gone through in the last 30 years. And that the first time I went into the doctor's office, there was like a Galaga Mrs. Pac-Man machine and magazines for the adults. Basically, it was like, tranquilize the kids, just get them to shut the fuck up, please. And then
it's so weird because what it did was and I have said this before too, is that it created an entire generation of incredibly artistic, good-looking children. You're welcome. It's what it is you get good teeth and it's but all of that that cocktail, you know, sort of, and then you turn 18 or 21 and you start partying, and then it ends up being, you end up driving. When I first started doing, specifically, it's stand-up comedy. When I first started doing stand-up comedy, only the unattractive and the insane did stand-up comedy, because I believe of the overprescription of Adderall. Very good-looking people have driven themselves mad, and that insanity has led to some very interesting stand-up comedy. And so I don't begrudge it, but you know, I'm sorry for those kids. You know.
Well, it's interesting because that was the first time I went into the office, and the last time I went, basically to like say bye to the psychiatrist because I was like fucking off to college. I was in the waiting room. There wasn't a video game in sight. It was all puzzles and brain teasers. And I was like, thank God. And I'm so glad that I was raised by like, fuck everyone but me boomers, where like I myself feel I'm just so grateful that the next generation of people who do have ADD have the necessary tools.
Right. Because it's
to them.
Yes, it is real and you can figure it out, but it doesn't have to be this blanket. You know, I think they just changed the term to sort of boy energy at some point. And you're like, that's fine. Just don't stop medicating them.
Yeah.
It's if you got to put somebody in a box, they'll fight out of that box eventually.
Absolutely.
But at least you're not junking them up on.
No, absolutely. And I actually have a great way of segueing this back to fragrance, which is,
please.
I did cocaine twice in my life.
Okay.
I never liked it because both times I left wherever I was and went home to organize my closet because I literally I've been on amphetamine salts since I was 5. So when you put that chemical in my body, it's like, you must go work. You must do something productive. And the scent, however, of cocaine maybe users, people in recovery can attest to this. Smells a certain way, and there's actually a fragrance by Tom Ford called Tuscan Leather that is allegedly supposed to smell like how that scent hits your nose when it's actually in it. Yeah, there's a few out there that sort of allude to that, so to speak. There's a lot of
they're trying to hit a market.
They're trying to hit a market, and it's actually the perfume that every year we buy for my brother, and he's not an addict,
right. That's just the one he likes, right?
He just likes it. But it's interesting. Sir, go ahead, please.
Oh, well, no, I was going to say that I remember my stepmother trying to get my sister and I into perfume when we were like 12, 13 years old, and loves Baby Soft, and her thing, because it was the 70s, was Revlon's Charlie. I don't know if you remember Charlie. But it had and then I can't remember if Charlie had the tiger stripes or if it didn't, but there was one that had tiger stripes, and it might have been Charlie because that was the one that she really liked. And I think for a little while there was like it felt very Charlie's Angels to wear perfume when I was I'm from Wisconsin. So it felt very like East Coast, West Coast, glamorous. You're like, oh, are you wearing Yves Saint Laurent Opium? And so, but you can't. Yeah, but it's so interesting that so you went through this arc of sort of overdosing yourself, and now is it more subtle? Like, what are you using now?
These, yes and no. I feel like my tendency is to overload or underload. I don't do anything kind of that passes. I either want somebody to lean in and be like, what is that? Or somebody to like require 6 feet. And right now I'm obsessed with a couple fragrances. There's one called Promise by Frederic Malle.
Okay. How do you spell Mao? Frederic Malle.
Frederic in French, the
Sure.
Frederic, and then Malle, Malle.
Oh, okay.
And what's cool is he oversees the brand, of course, and works with the perfumers, but the perfumers get their name on the bottle. And that's like never happened before to my knowledge, at least not getting center stage, because
that's exciting.
It's supposed to be like, designer built, not built by
chemist built, or
yeah, exactly. And so
are there natural perfumes? I'm digressing again, but there's like natural perfumes versus synthetic perfumes, right?
There are, and it's sort of a difficult conversation, because the idea of natural versus synthetic and one being better than the other is a false dichotomy.
Just arbitrary a little bit?
It's pretty arbitrary. If you purely want lavender, if you purely want cedar, pine, wear the oil, go for it. If you want, something like agar, which is essentially smells like rotting wood. Like, I don't know that I would necessarily. Also, it's so expensive. It's prohibitively expensive. There's a fragrance by Frederic Malle called, I think it's just called Night, and it has a lot of solid agar in it, and it is like $3,000 or something crazy like that.
Oh my God. Yeah, that. Yeah, it turns out you can get a very little for $1,153. You can get yourself 50 milliliters.
Yeah.
And
I love Frederic Malle, but that fragrance is too much for me. And I have a friend that works used to work at the store, and apparently a man walked in and purchased a 3.4 and 100 milliliter bottle, cracked off the top, poured it over his head, and walked out.
And then went to live the Hunger Games.
Jackie,
what the fuck?
I sprayed this fragrance on myself. It's one of 2 fragrances I've ever gone to the bathroom to wash off.
Okay, so
It's just
not,
intense.
it's
It's beautiful for what it is as an
Sure.
expression of like agar, but like it's not for me.
right. That, and it feels like that feels like a real fuck you to cryptocurrency. I mean, the spending $10,000 then pouring it over your head.
Yeah.
Just really feels, it has a real trust fund feel to it.
Yeah.
Real like you're like, yeah, I'm gonna put stickers on the roof of this Lamborghini that my mom gave me for my birthday. And so
That's hilarious.
fair enough. It's so you're wearing right now is this Promise business.
That's what I've been wearing lately. Right now, I've been using a tester by a fragrance house founded by Ben Gorham called Byredo. I've gone to the store and heard it multiple times at the store. Nobody knows how to say it. Who cares?
Right.
But the fragrance I'm wearing now and may purchase soon is called De Los Santos, which is basically like sage and Palo Santo yelling at each other from across the street. And a little bit of a sort of in the way that sage can approach like a peppermint sort of note. I need something for the summer. I like to usually like use a full bottle for the summer, like a summer fragrance.
So do you do this instead of sort of like a deodorant or
an
antiperspirant?
I do wear deodorant, antiperspirant. I literally like
one of the two.
One person in my life was like, antiperspirant causes cancer. And I was like, I believe you. I guess I'll just wear deodorant now. I'm actually still in a pretty middle school place with my perfume. I've done the Malinguettes, I've done the Aesop, I've done the Acqua di Parma. I have not found one that lasts all day. Let us remember, I am a Middle Eastern man. My genetics are constantly fighting with the environment, and that's one expression of it.
It's nice. It just I've always wanted because my father wears a perfume or a cologne or something like that. Is there a difference between a cologne and a perfume, or is it just words?
It is, yet both. There's an answer to both of those questions. There is a difference, and they are the same in that cologne it's gendered. We gender fucking everything. We gender phones. Like
right.
A cologne is thought to be for men, and is typically the concentrate. There's eau de cologne. There's eau de toilette, there's eau de parfum, and then there's extrait de parfum. And to my knowledge, there's probably some minor distinctions between the two, but it's just the concentration of the oil perfume within the context of the whole package.
Okay. Literally, it's percentage of content is sort of like the way champagne is defined, probably by some overseer regulation. That's kind of fascinating. I like the idea of the diversity of it, where you could change it seasonally, where you could change it just like if you're going to go out and dance, as opposed to if you're going to go to work.
Yeah.
If you're going to go spend the day outside at a picnic, or because people do that. People sometimes they pack a little Yogi Bear basket and they head out into a parkland.
Yeah.
But did you ever read? So this is the only book that I've ever read about perfuming, and it is called Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins.
I have not. No,
it is about the immortality of perfume. It is about how perfume can it is one of the things that this guy does that helps that helps make him immortal.
And
Tom Robbins is an old goody bird from the 70s.
Right.
But Jitterbug Perfume is actually my favorite, though he does have a very interesting He probably has 10 novels, but and I liked, I think, 6 of them. So there's one where somebody has a really big thumb. That one's the famous one. I was all right with that. I think I missed a window. But Jitterbug Perfume, I would recommend. I would recommend reading Jitterbug Perfume.
Okay.
It has some history of perfuming in it.
Love it. Absolutely. That sounds rad.
I was also reminded that I've done another episode of the Dork Forest, but probably 14 years ago about perfume.
Oh, wow.
And it was a bit of a hostage situation because I took my kit to these 2 women who made perfume in Portland, and they wouldn't stop talking. So I might put that in the. I might find a link to that and put that in the. They were outstanding. It was before I realized how to sort of control the dorkdom, where I could totally listen to other people's what they're enthusiastic about, but it is finite. Like I'm going to have you back to talk about your other dorkdoms, which are, essentially they're kind of comparable. They're like cigars and poetry. I think of you wearing perfume, writing poetry, having a cigar, and a nice, possibly a nice little tapas kind of meal, a small bite, and then and discussing art maybe or poetry.
Yeah, that's literally sounds like a absolutely wonderful Saturday afternoon. But listening too, because a big thing that frustrates me with any of those topics is being what I love about the format of the show is it's dorkdom. It's not I am the master of this or I am a expert, because I know what I know on these topics, and I already know what I think. When I talk to when I go to like a scent bar or something like that, I'm there to listen and to learn, and if I'm talking art with people, especially like, unless I know that they have like some crazy PhD or MFA, like all I want to know from somebody is like, when they're talking about an artist, like, how do they feel about it? Like, what does it remind them of? I don't want to. The sort of like international art English is just an exhausting form of communication.
Having the information is interesting to me, and I love an anecdote full of all kinds of math and science and information and history. But I also, the like you said, the main point of the show is the enthusiasm. Just because you should try different stuff. Like I've never wanted to go out and do any sort of potpourri, but I might now, because it can be anything, right? And I do enjoy a mixture of wood and flowers, and I like when things smell nice. So yeah, I'm not above it. So
we gotta go smell some stuff together.
I'll hang. I'll smell a thing. Right. So now I would actually just be, unless and this, we may get back to more perfume stuff, but we're not close to an hour, but we have plenty of time left. But I was wondering about the cigar thing, because the smell of a cigar is so very intense. Like my father used to smoke pipes, and very rarely, and once a year he would smoke a cigar. And I didn't mind the pipe. For some reason, pipe tobacco has sort of a sweetness to it that is more palatable for children's. It's certainly more palatable than 4 packs of generic cigarettes a day. But cigars feel, it's all I can think of is Castro. So what kind of cigars? Like, he liked the fake Cuban cigars. He liked the closest you could come to Cuban cigars.
Castro?
No, my dad.
Oh, your dad. Yeah. I was like, I think Castro had access.
He had access.
I could be wrong, but
that guy was smoking real ones. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we're in an interesting sort of. I got made fun of years ago for using this phrase regarding flour and milling in Brooklyn, but I'm just going to reuse
double down.
It.
Save space, my friend.
Double down, baby. There is a cigar, especially a small batch cigar renaissance happening right now in the U.S. because of a desire for quality cigars that are not mass produced, A, B, that aren't Cuban because the access is limited at best, but are made by people who smoke cigars and not just like giant corporations trying to sell you something.
Sort of like beer, sort of like the
absolutely.
That sort of what are those microbreweries?
Microbrewery, the renaissance of the microbreweries in the aughts and the tens, yeah.
Right. The cigars my dad smoked were called Macanudos.
Yeah.
And they were psyched about it because I think they got the leaves from Cuba, and then they rolled them. There was something where they were like, they're almost Cuban.
It's the seeds. The seeds could be from Cuba, and how they grow them can mimic this sort of Cuban style. What makes Cuban cigars better than any cigar in the world?
Yes, please.
Is that they're hard to get. Fair
enough.
The notion of luxury, a huge component of it is scarcity. And,
right.
I think that what makes something taste better, especially, when I studied it in for a high school program, I went to Cambridge in high school, like between sophomore and junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And my first stop was the tobacconist, so I could grab some Cubans, and it was amazing because I wasn't legal, B, I wasn't supposed to be, smoking Cubans, whatever.
Right.
But they're not better than any cigar in the world. I think that they can rate that way, but I would love to see some double blind, some truly double blind studies putting like the Cohiba Bejique up against, a Great Cliff Chateau Grand Cru,
okay.
And really see if somebody can delineate. I do love the fact, however, that before the embargo began, JFK had, I believe, I don't think this is an exaggeration, like 10,000 boxes of cigars brought from Cuba to the U.S. And
he wouldn't want to go without.
No, well, his tailor, the White House tailor, had to replace his pockets so often because when he went outside, let's say to go for a stroll or something, he would stick his hand in his pocket with the cigar in it, and the cigar would burn the interior of his pockets.
Oh, just to sort of hide that he was smoking or something, or okay, yeah, because he was.
He already had the Catholic thing. He didn't need everything else.
Right. It was. I think Obama had a hard time stopping smoking too for a second, and would occasionally. But you're president. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And but so when you smoke a cigar, I have never smoked a cigar. Like I said, my father smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day, and no one believed that I didn't smoke in high school and junior high. And my stepmother smoked 2.5 packs a day. So between them, they're like 7 packs of cigarettes. Absolutely nobody assumed that I did not smoke.
Right.
They were insisted that I smoked. And I was like, I don't smoke. But so when I tried to start smoking, like when I would go out with people and we'd be at a bar and stuff, and they'd be like, do you want a cigarette? And I'm like, yes, I do. And then I would have a cigarette and I'd be like, this is not for me. Mm-hmm. And I lucked out. But because they could be very addictive and they could cause cancer, I'm told. Just a little heads up for anybody who's missed the memo about cigarette smokes. But cigars seem super like intense, like the flavors, even barring whatever's happening there, right? Because it's tobacco, right? And it's nicotine.
So in Spanish, the word cigar comes from, I think, it comes from an indigenous language from the Americas. Pre-Spanish indigenous cultures. Cigar, I forget, maybe Aztec, and I could be wrong, is where we get the word cigar. In Spanish now, the word for cigar is puro, which is just pure. It's pure tobacco. There's
Wow.
there's no filler. The binder and the wrapper and the filler can all be different tobaccos, but it is pure tobacco.
And I will say that I just Googled this and I thought that was backgammon, but it turns out it's a box of cigars.
Yeah.
So historians generally believe it's Aztec was a good guess. They say Mayans
Mayan. Got it.
who would wrap tobacco in a palm or plantain leaf and smoke it. And 10th century depicts a Mayan man puffing one of these very early cigars.
Mm.
So yeah, so if they're pure tobacco, are they flavored at all? I mean, is it a cup of coffee that?
Well, it's like coffee. I mean, if you when I got sober, I got really into coffee because I needed to fucking replace my, wine douchery with something, and coffee was one of those things. And I don't mean that people who are in wine are douchebags. I was a douchebag about wine.
Right. You just owned it in a douchey kind of way. So
exactly,
there you go. Fair enough.
The difference between, an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe and a Panamanian geisha is obvious to coffee nerds.
Right.
And we could discern between the two, and we could state a preference, and then we could state why we like that preference. The same holds true for cigars. The types of tobacco, the aging processes, the drying processes, the way that it's rolled even. I personally like a longer, thinner cigar. I think you get more wrapper and you get more flavor over a longer period. Doesn't burn as hot. Versus,
one of those stubby,
just a little
I always picture Ed Asner.
Yeah.
It's so sort of a longer cigar. And what are they wrapped in? Are they still wrapped in
tobacco? Yeah, so
tobacco leaves.
They'll typically use the highest and best quality and looking. It's an interesting form of agriculture because it is not just like in the US, we've completely fucked our food system to the point where if this yellow bell pepper doesn't look like that yellow bell pepper on the food chart, it gets usually thrown away.
Right.
But what's done in, especially in countries like Cuba with long histories of this type of cigar making, the character, content, and characteristics, two of those words were the same.
No sweat.
They really matter to the cigar because you are consuming it in a way that is not, it's not covered by anything else. So if it is a bad leaf of tobacco, the cigar will taste bad.
Okay. Oh, interesting. It will affect the entire cigar. Even if the tobacco tastes different, the leaf is where a lot of the flavor lies.
The wrapper, I mean, they're all tobacco are leaves, but
okay.
The wrapper itself is usually a broader leaf that is with fewer veins. It's cosmetically prettier, but also the flavor is just as important. So
here's what I was thinking. I don't know why I thought it was ground beef jammed inside of a leaf, like it was a sarma, but it is not. It is.
It can be.
It is. It's tiny rolled leaves of tobacco leaves that are rolled together tightly and then surrounded by a larger leaf.
Surrounded by usually a binder and then the wrapper. And
okay.
I welcome everyone to fact check me on that. I've only seen
I'm sure I will
roll
Jackie and Jackie Cation me. You guys know where to get a hold of me, Rangers. So yeah, but I think I thought that it had been chopped up and then jammed into a leaf like they do with dolmanes, like a sarma. Yeah. And
there are some like that for sure. And those would probably be like inferior quality, and I mean that in like a truly agricultural sense. Like a tobacco farmer would be like, this is bad, this is good. based on the characteristics that he's trying to grow them for.
Right. This is someone who needs nicotine, and this is for a connoisseur. Sort of
Exactly.
just a different cut of meat, essentially.
Totally.
Because you have to use all of the plant, maybe, and some people can't afford the fancy. So that's interesting. Have you? I was going to ask you, because we are. I forgot to check when we started. It's all good, because I wanted to ask you sort of one kind of final question about all of these things, because they all have this scent in common, right? This sort of flavor palette to it. And it's, how would you describe your nose? Like, do you have like one of those noses that knows things? Is it a learned skill? Could anybody sort of, like, because it feels like a perfect pitch to some extent. Or at least I've read in fiction that some people are born with like a perfect smeller.
Sure.
But I think that it's got to be learnable, right?
It is. I think that there are people who have a proclivity. There are certainly super smellers and super tasters out there who can identify things that others simply don't have the physical capacity to taste. And they are typically highly valued in their whatever field that they may work in. I myself, my pride in any of these realms is frankly kind of goes to one of the topics that I sent you, which is poetry. Is my tendency to create a sort of like flash fiction of sorts of like the sage and Palo Santo screaming at each other from across the street. Mm-hmm. I like to create sort of, I like to connect dots that aren't there and help people understand through very like reasonable entryways. I want everyone to enjoy what they enjoy. And sure. It's exhausting to try and convince them that what you like is a good or worse better.
Right. Right. It's so, but I think with tell me if I'm wrong, is it that the imagery that you use in your poetry or in any sort of art is sort of this description of these scents, of these smells, of these flavors and tastes and that palette. And it bleeds over into your art?
Yeah, I think palette is the perfect word in a literal and also figurative sense, because right. it's my had I not grown up in a at least half Persian household, my relationship to saffron would not be what it is in scent, in taste, and then now in fragrance. I don't see. I think that there was and this is a weird example, but in high school, AP Language and Composition, Chris Harrington, my favorite teacher fucking of all time, he would refer when we were writing essays for practicing for the AP test. He remembered being a grader, and one of the teachers that graded the AP test would always use this phrase if they just didn't know what to say, which was not sufficient life experience, which is they didn't have the sufficient life experience to talk about whatever they were talking about. Okay. And I think about that a lot as to how that shapes and molds my experience as a painter, as a photographer, as a poet, as a cook, as somebody who loves perfume, loves cigars, loves fucking water.
Right.
And all of it is connected in a way in my brain that may not be apparent to others. And I have the exciting opportunity and privilege to try and share that excitement with them.
Right. Right. So when you walk into, and that's your work and that's your passion. And that's great how that bleeds into it. But like, if we go out to dinner, and we will one day, Sasha, you and I, we will dine. And we walk in and you smell the food, right? Will you I mean, because I know that everybody is just like, you could actually, and this is proven, that you can stop arguments if you just start pan frying garlic and onions. Because all of a sudden everybody stops whatever they're doing. It's like, is lunch happening?
Yeah.
And it is. My sister has actually stopped fights with family members, not our family, other families, but by doing just that. She was like, it was getting a little heated, so I just started pan frying some garlic and onions, and all of a sudden everyone was like, what time is lunch? What's and they forgot all of their problems.
Wow.
So when I walk into a Korean restaurant, for example, which is something my sister loves, and I've grown to love, I will try to find those chilies that I like in the air, and that I think is such an interesting. Is that something wherever you go? Do you kind of look for do you smell a room? Is it conscious? Or are you just?
Yeah, big time. I love restaurants, especially restaurants with a focus. My friend Mark Iacano has a restaurant in Brooklyn called Lucali. They're famous for their pizza, and his thing is he always wants you to walk into a pizzeria and for that smell to punch you in the face, right? And when you smell pizzeria, you're getting basil, you're getting tomato, you're getting oregano, you're getting the smell of dough proofing, possibly the cheese caramelizing. And when I go into a restaurant, it is this sort of like test, right? When I go into and it can actually be very practical too. There's I won't name it, but there's a very popular sushi place in New York City that I can't eat at because I seem to have only ever gone there when they do trash day. And trash for a sushi restaurant is different than trash anywhere else. And so, the experience of scent and smell in a restaurant context is extremely impactful. And I feel probably most comfortable, if I'm closing my eyes, I think restaurant wise, I think I feel the most comfortable probably in a Mexican restaurant, because it meant that something really delicious. It meant something that really just like no fucking bullshit frills, not to say that there isn't, fine dining and
right. And there could be nuance and all the things, but literally it feels like something that we all enjoy.
Yeah.
When and it's 5 ingredients wrapped in different kinds
well,
of.
I don't know about. I think Enrique Olvera might have some problems with that. I'm joking. You're canceled.
Canceled. Right. Exactly. I'm clearly.
No,
I've denied the entire Southern Hemisphere. No. Yeah, you get it.
No, absolutely. I think that for me, I mean, when I say Mexican restaurant, I close my eyes. I think of. Usually I'm from San Diego and we're asinine about our burritos. And we didn't get the word.
We didn't get the word up here in LA that you care about burritos.
Oh, you didn't?
No, hilariously. It's like, did you know that San Francisco hates Los Angeles?
Yeah. And LA has no opinions on SF.
No. So you guys I wish you all the best with your burritos. And it just means that I should probably go down to San Diego and try a burrito.
Yeah, get a. It's California burritos, the one to get. It's cheese, carne asada, maybe guacamole, maybe sour cream, but always crispy French fries.
In the burrito?
In the burrito.
Paasha, it has been an hour. So what I'm going to say now is, Rangers, you got to do this. You got to find Paasha's Instagram, check out his art, see what's happening. He's going to have a little glass of water. I'll have him back to talk about poetry and art another time. But it is Paasha Motamedi, and it is spelled Motamedi. And thank you so much for doing the show, Paasha.
Thank you, Jackie. It's honestly a genuine pleasure and a privilege to be here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?